Hi, it's Martin, and welcome to another video on my Knit365 YouTube channel. Today's video is a really exciting one because it's the launch of my first ever Knit365 collaboration. So as you can see, I have guests joining me today, and we're going to walk through a bit more details about the collab, show off the yarn, show off the finished items. Spoiler, I don't think I've said this before, it's a shawl. Very excited to be joined by Gemma, Louise, and Hannah. So let's get straight into it. I'll hand over to my guests to introduce themselves and their role in the collaboration, and then we'll do a bit of show and tell and start showing off all the finished items. So why don't we go around in order? So why don't we go top? Gemma, you're in the top on my screen, so why don't we start with you?
Okay, so I am Gemma of The Little Grey Girl, bag maker and yarn dyer, or dye mistress, as Martin refers to me quite a lot. And I have been dyeing the yarn based on Martin's mood board for the collaboration.
Very exciting, thank you. We'll show that off in a little minute. Going on next then, so Louise.
Hello, I'm Louise. I'm the knitting component of this collaboration. So I've been designing a shawl using Gem's lovely yarn. So it's a woolen skein shawl, as you know. And my challenge really was working with Hannah, who will come up in a minute. But it was, yeah, knitting a shawl and producing something that will work for both of us.
Excellent, thank you. And then last but no means least, Hannah.
And just to clarify, she doesn't mean working with me was a challenge.
No.
Hannah was the difficult one of the project.
The awkward one with the hook. Yeah, so I'm doing the crochet shawl for the patterns, and it was a challenge because with knitting you can do it with one skein and you can get quite a lot of shawl. But with crochet, sometimes it eats up the yarn a lot faster. So we had an interesting time trying to settle on what shape we were going to work on that would complement both crafts.
Yeah. So we'll come back to the shape in a minute. So why don't we start where it began with the yarn? So Gemma's probably sick of me talking about this project because I've kind of started banging on about this at the beginning of the year. Oh, I'd like to do something like this. I'm not sure how to do it. It needs to be
beginning of the year. That was last year.
All right, the beginning of last year. Very well. Yes, actually, it's early January now, isn't it? Yeah, so early 2022, I started talking about this. So Gemma's kind of been on this journey since the beginning and kind of been my sending 10-minute WhatsApp notes going, how do I do this? Would this work? How does this work? So yeah, Gemma's been around from the beginning. So I guess, why don't you, we'll show the mood board that we settled on. I'll put that on Instagram for those of you that want to go and see that for the final mood board. But Gem, why don't you give us your view? What did you think when you first saw the mood board and the colours that I'd suggested?
It was very blue and grey and like very Martin, basically.
That's not going to be a spoiler for anyone. Loads of people are like, is it blue and grey? I'm like,
is it blue and grey? Of course it is, yes. So it was kind of dystopian. I don't even know where the dystopian stuff came from because it wasn't really what we talked about at the beginning. But yeah, so it was very kind of dusky, and yeah, a lot of blues, a lot of greys, kind of, I don't want to say grimy because that doesn't sound right at all, but yeah, it's that kind of like
grimy
very...
could work for the dystopian. I don't know where the dystopian thing came from either. I had this image in my mind of this, like, it started as a forest, I think, that's like, it was really foggy and a bit, I think I stumbled upon an image that had dystopian in the title. So I then spent hours on Pinterest searching
Pinterest,
dystopian nightmare. And then found all of these images under the words dystopian. But that seemed to be the misty, murky, but yeah, greys and blacks.
It was an interesting mood board because it wouldn't have been something that I would normally have chosen to dye from. Let's put it that way. So yeah, it was a challenge for me. And what is the yarn now went through about 6 iterations before it became this. So for me, it's a trial and error process. Try this technique. Does that work? No, it's not quite right. and worked on, and what we actually dyed was a technique that I don't normally use when I'm dyeing. So that was quite interesting for me. So it was a new way for me to dye.
And that's even better. And I didn't think about your usual color palette when I was thinking. I looked at colors that I would look for in a ski, but actually you're right. Then by me choosing those colors, they wouldn't be colors that you would usually dye. That kind of makes it even more exciting for me as part of my kind of Knit365 collab, because I've been able to work with you on something that you wouldn't usually have done.
Yeah, so and if we do this again, I'm having an input. For less of a dyeing headache, just to put that out there.
I've already thought of the color palette for the next one.
Of course you have. I want pink. Approval first.
It might have pink in it.
Oh, that's okay. I
know. So before we show the color, then finally, why don't we talk? I've mentioned before that we've got sort of an exclusive base as well. So colors that you wouldn't usually dye, but a base that you wouldn't usually use. So why don't you tell us about the base and then show off the yarn?
Yeah, so it's a completely exclusive base to this collaboration. It's not a base that I stock on my website and probably won't stock on my website. Not that it's not nice, just it's very similar to what I dye already. So it will be an exclusive base for this. And it is a biodegradable nylon and merino yarn. So basically it breaks down in less time than normal nylon. So it becomes much kind of better for the world, I guess. So yeah, so it's got 430 meters to a skein, so it's a bit longer than my normal, but we kind of also went for it because it gives us the most yardage or meterage for both the designers to play for.
Yeah, we didn't want to give Hannah a small skein.
Yeah, exactly. One of my 365 meters, she might have cried. 85% superwash merino and 15% biodegradable nylon. So it doesn't feel, I don't think, and the designers can tell you they've knit it because I haven't knit in it. I don't think it feels any different it's really soft. I don't think the biodegradable nylon makes it feel any different. So yeah, it was an interesting, it's got a bit of a twist to it, but I wouldn't say it's a high twist yarn, but it has got a really nice twist to it. So do we want to see?
Yeah.
So this is the skein. The lighting in here isn't amazing, and I will have some more photos. So basically it is a blue, creams and grey with some speckles in there as well. So it's quite a variegated. Let me just pull this one out and then skein it back up, just because you might be able to see some of the speckles better on there. So you've got some really nice like speckly sections. So, yeah,
speckles.
Yeah, so you've got teal and blue and grey speckles in there. My camera on my computer isn't amazing, but yeah, so that is the yarn.
Yeah, and by the time this video is now live, there will be pictures on Gemma's website and on Instagram, so you can go and see the professionally photographed version that Gemma will have rather than the YouTube version.
Yeah.
And we have a number of skeins ready to ship because I went to Gemma's when she was doing the final. She said it went through a few iterations. I was there for the final iteration and we've dyed nearly 50 skeins, and there are a couple, I don't know how Gemma's going to distinguish them, but she said she's going to put my name on them so that some of you might get my actual scheme where I did my
there won't be a listing where you can choose, but some people will, and you'll know by the label when next to the name of the yarn has a little star if Martin has done the speckling on it.
So if you're not happy with the speckling, then you know my way.
Complain to Martin, not to me.
It was brilliant. I had so much fun. And what was the name of the yarn? What did you settle on? Because you really surprised me with this, because you didn't tell her when you sent us the sample yarn to send on to Louise and Hannah. You didn't tell me that you were going to have named it. And I have
named it.
You have.
And it's called Disturbia. So somewhere between Dystopic Universe and the headache that I went through trying to come up with this yarn, I think. So I'm sticking with that as its name.
Love it. Thank you. That is awesome. So then why don't we move on? So maybe let's stick in the same order then. So Louise, why don't you tell us a bit about the shawl, the shape, how you came up with your version of the shawl. And I guess Hannah at the same time, you know, how the two of you collaborated, because I think one of the things I've talked about when I've talked to people about doing this collab is that I wanted a single item that was the same. So in theory, if you both hold your shawls up now, they look like they're siblings because they're made in the same yarn, but they've got a same style shape. Even though they're completely different crafts, there is that kind of uniformity. Because people love it when I say it, bistitchual, because I'm a knitter who can crochet. I always feel like you always end up with a knit along or a crochet along. It's very rare that you see something that does both. But I didn't want to exclude a group of people and go, I'm doing a knit along. And then the crocheters will go, but what about me? Which is why I tried to have something when we talked and I had the first call, something that you could both work on that had that similarity between the two of them. So how did that kind of work for you?
It was interesting actually, because I think after we'd had a chat, all four of us, Hannah and I chatted separately just about how we could best do it. Obviously things like certain shapes of shawls lend themselves better to this kind of project than others. So I think we felt quite strongly that something elongated, either asymmetric or an elongated triangle would work better. And mainly I kind of went with what would work for Hannah, to be honest, because she was the one that had more of a challenge in terms of yardage. As you've said, with a knitted shawl, you can quite easily get a project out of one skein. With crochet, it's much more of a challenge. Sorry, my cat is really blossom.
It's fine. Get her on too if she wants to come in.
Oh, she's here.
I've just heard the dishwasher go, and I'm like, oh no. Like it's either the dishwasher or the washing machine. I was like, something's going to make a noise in a minute.
My washing machine is beeping horribly from the kitchen as well, but I'm ignoring that. But Blossom is.
Hi, Blossom.
Murder mittens. I've got the laptop precariously balanced on the table and she's nudging it from the back, which is not helping at all. So if I disappear, you know why. But maybe if Hannah and I show sort of just get off. Right, she's gone.
What is it they say? Never work with children and pets.
Exactly.
My children are well out of the house today.
She certainly picks her moments, I'll give her that. But perhaps if Hannah and I kind of hold up our shawls, then you can kind of see.
This is the first time I've seen this as well, FYI, so we'll all see it together.
Okay, so we've kind of got, actually they do look pretty similar, actually.
Yeah.
They do.
Hannah and I haven't seen them.
Mission accomplished.
Kind of,
but clearly we listen to each other.
So I think we've certainly, in terms of the knitting side, I went for something that you knit side to side. So rather than top down, we went side to side, and obviously you get and with garter stitch as well, you get a nice long wrappable shawl with that. In terms of the speckling, I just wanted to say it was really good to knit. I really enjoyed knitting it. It was I try and hold a bit of it up to the camera. You can see you get these lovely kind of variegated bits.
It's nice because it doesn't. I really struggle with like pooling and things like that, so it's always quite
I mean,
learning what will pool and not, and it doesn't at all actually.
It doesn't, no. Even on the bits where it gets kind of, you know, where you think you get into the sort of 64 stitches where you might get a bit of pooling, not at all. And the speckles are just long enough so you get a couple of stitches. So it's not like a tiny pop, it's like, you know, enough for a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious to see how it looks in the crochet version, because obviously that's a little different. But yeah, it was a really great base to knit. I really enjoyed it. Definitely use it again.
It's cool a bit, but not. It looks the same.
That's
the thing with crochet though, is it pools a lot more. Because you're kind of running on the spot for a bit. But no, I think it looks nice. It looks just as good as yours, you know, which I'm really pleased about.
It's really nice to see how similar they are. Actually, I think it's yeah. Very cool.
And Hannah, I know
it's almost like we planned it, isn't
it? Hannah, hold yours up again, give it, because I know one of your bugbears as a crochet designer is that people often tell you that crochet is really stiff, and I can already see that there's drape in that and there's movement. So what hook size did you use? Tell us a bit about the construction.
So I used a 4.5mm because I always go up a hook size. Whatever it recommends on the label, that is the most dense you can do. So I always go up at least, you know, half a hook size, see how that is, and then go up again and so on. So a 5mm would have been far too loopy, and you would have seen everything through it. But a 4.5 was enough to just get drape without compromising on how warm it would be.
Yeah.
And because as well in crochet, if you're trying to do a symmetrical shape, it's really hard to decrease and get it to match the increases that you did. So I've done this in 2 pieces. So it's actually 2 long triangles, and I've used slip stitch to join them together.
Oh, clever.
And you can't see that. Obviously there's like there'll be a little ridge on the back, but you can't really see it.
You'd never know.
No, it's
So
fascinating.
just to get it symmetrical, I was like, right, we've just got to do 2 pieces, and there's no wrong sides. The both sides are fine. So
that's what I love about garter as well, is that there isn't a wrong side thing, so it doesn't matter how you throw it on, really.
Yeah.
And Hannah, that technique, I know we've been chatting as well. So by having 2 triangles, that's one of the techniques as well to overcome the kind of the single skein. Am I going to run out of yarn? What will happen if you get all the way to the end and you've got a bit to go because you're a bit short? Actually, talk me through that in a bit more detail.
Yeah. So basically it's not much. It was only about 38 stitches to get to the end. It was because you said about it being accessible. I thought, okay, well, let's not make it too complicated with the decreases. So I could work on the 2 pieces and get it to a length that I wanted without worrying about running out of yarn. And obviously if I was going to run out of yarn, then the second piece would be a bit smaller, but it wasn't, and I actually had some yarn left over, would you believe? So yeah, it was just, if you work on the 2 pieces, you can kind of say, right, well, I've got half a ball here, half a ball there, you know, it's going to perfectly meet in the middle. So yeah, you know, you might want to do that when you wind it up. You might want to do 2 balls and work on it that way, because you really don't need much for the trim. But yeah, that was how I got around it, because I just thought, well, it'll just be very asymmetrical if I get to the point where I need to narrow it and I start running out of yarn. It'll just be asymmetrical, you know, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I honestly don't know why I thought, oh, I'll just make 2 pieces and join them, but I'm glad I did, because I got the symmetry. Yeah.
And it's really great to see using hand dyed in that, because I've had comments from people going, but can I use hand dyed in crochet? Like, yes, absolutely you can. Like it, and that was one of the things, again, by doing this and having this kind of focus on the same style and shape for knit and crochet, it just shows how they can complement each other, and you can do the same in both. You don't have to go, oh, well, Hannah's got to use commercial yarn and Louise has got this lovely hand dyed. It's like, well, no, actually you can get the hand dyed skein and make it whether you're a knitter or a crocheter.
Exactly. And I've had the same. I've had comments on Twitter about it, where people say, oh, well, I don't tend to crochet because I'll pick up like 1 skein every now and then from an indie dyer or a yarn festival. And it's like, well, for the amount of odd skeins you've got in your stash, you could just buy 2 nice ones and actually crochet something with them, you know, than just have these odd skeins forever. But it can be done with 1. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where this idea that you can't use hand dyed comes from, because you can. I do it all the time, you know.
Well, we're gonna beat that myth now with our crochet along. Do you want to just hold yours up to the camera, and then we'll do the same with Louise in a minute? Do you want to just show the edging, the scallop edge, because you added that afterwards, didn't you? So make 2 triangles, join in the middle, and then the edging is at the end.
That's pretty.
So you basically I stuck the edging on the increase side. So there's a side that just stays straight the whole time.
Yep.
And on the wrong side we did the increases. And then at the end it was literally just so because I work right to left, I just started on the end and just did the shell stitch all the way across, and it matched up to the point where the thickest part, you know, the deepest part of the shawl, a shell just went perfectly on the top, so it was a nice you know, point. But you know, this is really easy and it's loads of fun, and I've set the amount of shells that you need to do. So as long as you know, you just when you're doing the shell, you just work into the side of the stitches. You know, I haven't said work into a specific stitch, you just work into the side. But if I've said do 64 shells, you'll kind of be able to evenly see, you know, like in a knitting pattern where it says decrease this many stitches evenly, it's just like shell stitch evenly across. And if you get it wrong, just pull it out and do it again. It's really easy.
That's the one thing I do like with crochet, is the let's just rip it out in a couple of minutes and then off we go again. The knitting, I'm like, oh, I need to drop a stitch, or
yeah, go back a few rows, pick that stitch up.
And Louise, do you want to do the same then? So do you want to show, can you hold the knit one up to the camera and just show off? Because I think you've got a similar straight edge.
Yeah, so this is so I'm trying to hide. I haven't sewn my end in. I'm trying to hide it, but
I never sew my ends in.
Actually, I was wearing a shawl yesterday to the supermarket, and I looked down and there was still a little bull pin in the side of it. I've been wearing it for months and months. But anyway, so I'll just, there is an end. I can't hide it.
Fine.
So similar to with Hannah, this starts off with, if I show you that bit. So that's the starting point. So you have your increases happening along this edge. And this edging is knitted on as you go. So it's it's just a series of increases, and then every, I can't remember how many rows it is now, every 18 rows you do a picot bind off. So you have these little if I can show you, so it's like a kind of sharp tooth, but you end up with these little picot edges as well.
Yeah.
And then the straight edge is an I-cord.
I love an I-cord.
I love an I-cord. I know, I was just going to say I love an I-cord.
I know you love an I-cord.
But I do love, as long as you don't have to put it on at the end, Stephen. I love an I-cord.
No, this is again as you go. So if I show you, so you get that nice kind of finished edge to it. And I think this is actually the first shawl I've done that has an I-cord edge, which is I was surprised. I've got several attempts lurking in the basket, but this is the first one that's actually made it. So yeah, so it's one of these where you work till you've got half the yarn left, and then you just start decreasing, and you just go back the other way. So because of I always like to leave a bit of a margin for error. So with this, I worked until I had, I think it was about 45, until I'd used up 45 grams of yarn, and then I just started decreasing. So I did end up with a little bit left. But obviously, if when people are doing it themselves, they can kind of judge when they want to start the decreases, and you end up with it's a perfectly wrappable length. You could stretch it a bit longer and get it longer, but you end up with a nice kind of drapable garter stitch shawl.
I was going to say, and this is where I need to listen to the designers, because I made a blanket last year and it says when you get to 45%, start the decreases. And I was like, I'm going to have yarn left. That doesn't right. So I'm going to wait till I get to 50, and then I'm going to go. And then I messed the decreases up, and I was about this much short at the end. So I had to contact someone and say, have you got any of that yarn? And they were like, yeah, can I have a little bit of brown and a little bit of black? Because it was a color change advent type thing with minis. And I just, it's like, no, the designer's wrong. You just go to 50 and it'll be fine. And then, no, clearly not. I should have listened to the designer. So point noted on that one. If it's get to a certain point, listen to Louise.
Same with one of my testers asked me, but like I do this all the time, and she's gone, you've forgotten to put gauge, does it not matter? And I'm like, it does bloody matter. I've forgotten. And the reason I've put I've made sure, like, yes, it's absolutely there, is because if you are not matching my tension, then you're going to run out of yarn. So yeah, when she asked me, did you mean to put the gauge in, I was like, yes I did. But yeah, because you don't want to run out, and you have to match my stitch count, you know, my
Hannah, I'm guessing if with crochet, if they ran out of yarn, because you've got the shells on the edge, if they had a mini or something, they could do the shells in the mini. Like if you got to that point and you're like, oh, I've run out, rather than start again, they could always flourish it with a mini or something at the end to.
Yeah, I mean the first you know, it doesn't take much. You could do it with 20 grams, you know, like one of those. Yeah, you could do it with 20 grams. You could do it with some.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, given it's, you know, it's more yarn. I don't know, because I don't crochet.
You could absolutely.
Louise, do you crochet?
A little bit.
Are we going to have a go at a crochet shawl?
I am. Yes. Yeah. The first crochet shawl I did was actually one of Hannah's. It was the I'm trying to think of
this one.
That one. Yes.
Yeah.
Daphne. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was really, really impressed with it. That was 2 skeins. That was a nice sort of generous. I gave it to my mum actually. She really likes it. But yeah, I'd always I can do blankets and I can do kind of things in straight lines. But Hannah's shawl was the first one that I'd actually attempted something wearable, and I was really, really really impressed with it. So I'm really looking forward to having a go at this one. Actually, it'd be good.
Yeah, good. No, I'll have a go at the knit one as well, because I've never done a picot bind off. I'm always
so I'm going to do both.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to dedicate, like, right, I'm going to do an hour on the knit one, an hour on the crochet. I can't do one then the other. I'm going to have to, you know me, I love casting on new things. So I'm going to have to do both at the same time. So yeah, if Hannah and Louise are going to do the other, Gem, what are you going to do? Are you going to do both?
With me, I did 2 things last year. Let's not get carried away.
Well,
I'd like to do both. And to be honest, I shall probably do them, no offence to my lovely blue and grey yarn, but I may do it in one of my other yarns so that I can take it as a sample to shows, in the hope that you guys get more pattern sales. Because if I do it in this yarn, people will be like, have you got that yarn? And I'll be like, no, it's too late. So I'll probably do one of each, or get one of my lovely many sample people to make that happen
one.
For me. They may make an appearance at Unravel in February if I can pull my finger out.
Wow.
I was just going to say that could be, so rather than me doing, because if I'm going to do 2, I'm kind of openly admitting to now I'll sample knit one if you want, because I'm thinking if I'm going to do 2, rather than doing 2 in the same yarn, I could do one in our yarn, and I could do one in another yarn. So I can we can discuss.
Yes, because I will definitely take them as samples to shows, so that because people always want to see one skein projects, because they'll go, well, how much do you get out of this? And I've got a couple, so it's quite, and crochet samples are so rare. Like, I think more dyers are doing them now, and I've got quite a few, but it's always nice to have a crochet sample. So yes, exciting.
Yeah.
Hardly any ever, you know. I've had people who crochet come up to me at Yarn Festival and say, "There's like no crochet here," because there's not many samples, like you say.
Yeah. when I went to East Anglia Yarn Festival last year, I would say for the first time ever, 60 or 70% of the people that were there were crocheters.
Yeah.
And I actually had, like, I've never seen more, like, usually, you'll know, Louise, when you go to a yarn festival, it is mostly knitters, but they were very crochet heavy. It was much more crochet heavy. So I do have a few crochet samples already, so we shall add to those, which is exciting, because I like to see how it crochets up, because if someone asks me, I don't know, because I don't crochet.
And what I loved is, because I did some swatches, because Gemma sent us the yarn when it was done, and I did because I'm a knitter, I knitted swatch first, sorry Hannah, and I kind of did it and I was like, oh, it's so soft. It's like, it is really, really soft. So I did my knitted swatch, and then I did my crochet swatch to see, and I loved, that was the first one I did. I think that was on a 3 or a 3.5. And then I went up, then Hannah said that she was using a 4, did you say 4.5?
Yeah, 4.5.
Whatever hook you said you were using, that was then this one, to see how different it looked. And I loved seeing how different the colours play, and how you see the speckles between the 2 swatches. So I'm not usually a swatcher, But I did these before I went to Gem so that we could see. And I think Gem, the finished yarn is possibly slightly darker in places with some of
Yeah,
this.
it's definitely
a bit more
got some
heavier
slightly.
speckle.
Yeah, it's got definitely some more darker patches, but it is
Yeah.
very similar to that. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how these all come out, and it's going to be nice to see them and feel them knit up as well. Actually, in this new base, because I obviously haven't knit with it yet.
Really soft. It's really nice.
Yeah, I really like it. Gem's not a big fan because it's a different. We may as well do the behind the scenes reveal. She doesn't want to do it permanently because it's a different height and it doesn't look the same on a stand.
It's a really small. I don't know whether you noticed. It's a shorter skein.
Oh no!
So it's not as long as I haven't got a normal. Oh yeah, I have.
Look, this
So
is the
it's
behind the scenes things that people want to see.
Like this is. It's quite, so it's not so easy to skein, but also if I was to hang that on my grid wall, that would really upset me.
There wouldn't be symmetry. She's
Louise
like,
is like, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not the
Isn't that
same.
weird? Yeah.
A lot of the ones from where we got this yarn from, which is not my normal supplier, a lot of their skeins are a lot shorter. Must just be where they get their yarn from. They just turn it into shorter skeins. It's nice to dye, because you don't have to scrunch it up so much in the trays. You don't get as much scrunching and as much white, so it is nice to dye in that. But yeah, they're just,
there's so much of it.
Yeah,
I know that was considering there's more meterage on it as well. How they've made it small. But there was a voice note that was like, "It's lovely to dye. It's lovely and soft. I'm not stocking it permanently. It's different height. I can't be doing it."
It's a short, stumpy skein that upsets.
No, it's weird because it's so soft, and if I've ever worked with like merino nylon before, sometimes, you know, every now and then, just sometimes, it's almost as if you can feel the nylon.
But sometimes it's a bit crunchy, and it is. I do think it's about where people buy their bases, and a lot of people say to me, "What do you do to your yarn? It's so soft." I'm like, nothing special, I don't think. But yeah, so no, it is super soft. It feels very much like I've got an MCM base, and it's got that kind of more like cashmere feel to it, which is really nice.
That was my first thought when I did the knitted swatch, especially because it's a solid fabric. It's very soft, it's very drapeable. Yeah,
it's definitely very wearable as well, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's been so much fun walking through the items and hearing about the yarn. So I guess we can give people the information. It's now live. So we're recording this video Friday morning behind the scenes. And this is now in theory live. You're watching this Monday afternoon. So if you head to Gemma, Louise and Hannah's websites, the details will be below. You can now purchase the yarn if you want to get involved and have one of our Knit365 exclusive colorways, and you can also then buy the patterns from Louise and Hannah. So that's now live. So once you finish watching this video, head over to the website and get your hands on yarn and pattern. Gemma and I are also in discussions with the exclusive bag, which will more on that later. So you can see that on the website as well. And yeah, thank you very much everybody for your support. It's been so much fun talking about this collaboration, and I've been talking about it for a few months, that I was planning something, and it kind of feels really weird and a bit surreal that it's now here, because I've been talking about it, as we joked at the beginning, with Gemma for what feels like over a year now. And Hannah and Louise, I think we got in touch in the summer, and it's great to finally have it happening and see it. So everything's now live, so you guys can get over to the websites and support us. The knit along and the crochet along will start around my birthday weekend. So I think I've penciled in Friday the 4th of March. I just need to speak to the folks and just check that's the start date, but around my birthday weekend in March we'll start it, which gives Gemma enough time then. So if enough of you want the yarn and the ready to ship yarn sells, we're going to do a pre-order. So that gives Gemma enough time then for the next couple of weeks to have the pre-order open, and then to dye the yarn and get it shipped so that it's with you all in time to start the knit and crochet along then early March. That's the reason why we're delaying it slightly. So there will be a pre-order if the yarn sells out, which will be open I think for a couple of weeks, Gem, and then we'll do that in maybe in 2 batches, just to be clear with people on timescales, that if Gem sells quite a lot of them, she hasn't got to dye them all literally in one go. We'll probably do 2 or 3 steps so that that makes it easier for Gemma to dye and ship. But knit along and crochet along early March. So we'll do a couple of lives during that process so that we can all get together and chat. Hopefully we'll get Hannah and Louise along. If people have questions about the pattern, they can then answer those live. We'll have a discussion over on Instagram as well, and potentially some kind of way for us to chat in a group, maybe a Facebook group, or we'll see what that bit looks like, but more details on that as we get closer to March. Is there anything else that I've missed from either of you three before we wrap the video up?
No.
Okay, thank you so much for joining. Head over to the websites and get your hands on the Knit365 collaboration. I'm so excited that these 3 joined me on this crazy journey, and I can't wait to get going. I've not tested any of these, and I said I've just seen both the finished items for the first time now, so I'm really excited to get going and start this in March. So thank you from me to Gemma, Hannah and Louise for saying yes and jumping in on this crazy journey. Let me know in the comments below if you're joining in. Are you going to be doing knitting, crochet, both? Are you going to get your hands on the yarn? Gemma will ship worldwide. I forgot to mention that. So again, allow time for postage, but we will ship worldwide. So if there are people outside the UK that want to join in, absolutely, again, trying to be inclusive for everybody. So we will leave this there. I will be back next week or the week after with a normal Knit365 video where we're going to go through my stash, because I'm going to try and not buy yarn this year. And I promised the stash tour, so we're going to go through the stash. So I'll be back in a week or so's time with another video. But thank you very much for joining us today. So until we speak again, happy crafting.